right now, heading into Dover Motor Speedway for the 2026 NASCAR All-Star Race, something feels genuinely different. And I do not mean different in the way NASCAR sometimes says things are going to be different and then delivers the same product with a slightly adjusted format. I mean different in the way where multiple conversations are happening simultaneously across the sport, in the garage, in the broadcast booth, on social media, among fans who have been watching NASCAR for decades, and all of those conversations are pointing at the same event at the same time. The All-Star Race at Dover has energy around it that this event has not had in a long time. Now, part of that is because the format itself has been completely redesigned. NASCAR did not just tweak the structure this year. They rebuilt it. And we are going to break down exactly what that new format looks like and why it creates the kind of unpredictability that the All-Star Race has been chasing for years. But the format is only one piece of this story. Because at the exact same time that NASCAR was finalizing and announcing the new race structure, two other major developments landed, and together, they took a race weekend that was already interesting and turned it into something that feels genuinely historic in terms of the conversation it is generating. The first development involves tires. Specifically, a brand new Goodyear tire compound that was designed from scratch specifically for Dover's unique and brutally demanding conditions. A tire that could completely reshape how teams approach strategy, how drivers manage their equipment, and ultimately who wins and who loses on Sunday. The second development involves an idea. A proposal from one of the most credible and beloved voices in the entire sport, Dale Earnhardt Jr., that would fundamentally change what the All-Star Race even is. Not just how the format works, what the event actually looks like, who is on track, what they are racing, and why every single lap becomes a story. These three threads, the new format, the new tire, and the new vision, all connect to the same fundamental question that NASCAR has been trying to answer for years now. How do you make the All-Star Race feel truly special again? Not just relevant, not just watchable, truly special. The kind of event where fans who have been following this sport for 30 years look at the calendar and say that weekend is different, that weekend matters. That weekend I am not missing no matter what. Because that feeling is what the All-Star Race was built to create. And that feeling, at various points over the years, has slipped away in ways that were hard to ignore. So today we are going to dig into all three of these stories completely. We are going to understand exactly what is happening with the tires at Dover and why it matters far more than it might seem on the surface. We are going to break down Dale Jr.'s multi-class proposal and explore exactly what it would mean if NASCAR ever actually pulled the trigger on it. And we are going to talk honestly about the bigger picture, where this sport is right now, where the All-Star Race fits into that picture, and whether the things happening this weekend represent a genuine turning point or just another round of experimentation. Let us start from the beginning. Before we can properly understand why the Goodyear tire story is significant, we need to spend a few minutes talking about Dover Motor Speedway itself. Because Dover is not just another oval on the schedule. It is one of the most unique and demanding tracks in all of motorsport, and you cannot fully appreciate what a new tire compound means at this facility without first understanding what this place does to a race car. Dover Motor Speedway is a 1-mile concrete oval located in Dover, Delaware. It has been part of the NASCAR Cup Series schedule since 1969, and in that entire time it has built a reputation for being one of the most physically punishing and mechanically demanding tracks on the calendar. The surface is the first thing that sets Dover apart. It is concrete, not asphalt. That distinction matters enormously. Asphalt and concrete behave very differently under racing conditions. Asphalt tends to be more forgiving in certain temperature ranges, provides a different kind of grip character, and evolves in its own way as rubber lays down over multiple race laps. Concrete is harder, more abrasive in specific conditions, and creates unique challenges for tire compounds that simply do not exist at asphalt ovals. The banking at Dover is steep and consistent, 24 degrees throughout all four corners. That is steeper than many tracks on the schedule, and the consistency of that banking angle means there is no break anywhere around the circuit. Every corner loads the car in the same aggressive way. There is no easy section of the track where a driver can breathe or where the tires get a moment of relief. You are hammering the right side of the car, particularly the right front and right rear tires, continuously for every single lap. Now add speed to that equation. Dover is a 1-mile track, but the speeds there are genuinely surprising. The combination of steep, consistent banking and high horsepower cup machinery means cars are carrying tremendous momentum through those corners. The centrifugal forces are massive, and those forces translate directly into load on the tires, load that compounds the already aggressive demands of the concrete surface and the steep banking angle. Drivers have described racing at Dover as one of the most physically demanding experiences on the entire NASCAR schedule. The car never really finds a comfortable balance. It is constantly pushing, constantly loading, constantly demanding input from the driver. The arms get tired. The neck gets tired. Concentration has to be total for every single lap because the consequences of a small mistake at Dover are immediate and severe. The outside wall is always close. The concrete is unforgiving. There is no sliding it out and recovering the way you sometimes can on an asphalt surface. And then there is one more critical element of Dover that shapes everything else about racing there: the surface grip evolution. Dover's concrete is comparatively smooth. In some ways that sounds like a good thing. Smooth surface, good grip, easy racing. But the reality is more complicated. Because on a smooth concrete surface, the rubber that comes off race car tires during a race does not get scrubbed away the same way it does on a rougher track. Instead, it builds up in the racing groove. It lays into the surface and creates a rubber-on-concrete grip layer that changes dramatically over the course of a race weekend. As more rubber goes down, the grip level in the primary racing line increases significantly. But the grip level outside that narrow line stays low. The track becomes two completely different surfaces: the high-grip rubber-down lane and the slippery concrete outside it. Getting caught outside the groove at Dover costs enormous time. Getting pushed out of the groove by a competitor can be the difference between winning and finishing mid-pack. This rubber buildup also means the track is constantly evolving during the race itself. The grip level in the first 15 laps is different from the grip level in the final 50 laps. As the surface changes, the ideal car setup changes. Handling balance shifts, tire wear patterns shift, and teams that built their setup around what the track looked like at the beginning of the race have to decide whether to chase adjustments or ride out the changes. That is Dover Motor Speedway. Concrete surface, steep consistent banking, high speeds, relentless right-side loading, narrow high-grip groove, continuously evolving track conditions. Now let us talk about what Goodyear built for it. NASCAR officially confirmed that Goodyear developed and is bringing a completely new tire setup to the 2026 All-Star Race weekend at Dover. This is not a compound borrowed from another event on the schedule. It is not a minor adjustment to last year's Dover spec. It was built specifically for this race weekend and the unique conditions at this specific facility. Goodyear's development team used two primary data sources to build the new compound. The first was information gathered at Bristol Motor Speedway earlier in the 2026 season. Bristol is another concrete track, which makes it the closest comparable surface available on the current NASCAR schedule. Data about how rubber behaves on concrete, how corner loading affects wear patterns, and how tire temperatures and pressures evolve on a similar surface gave Goodyear meaningful real-world information to work with. The second source was data gathered at Dover itself during the 2025 race weekend, actual on-track performance numbers from the same facility where the new tire will be used. The stated objectives for the new compound are significant. First, the tire needs to handle Dover's heavy corner loads and high speeds without compromising structural integrity over a full race stint. That is the baseline requirement. If a tire cannot survive the physical demands of the Monster Mile, nothing else matters. But the second objective is where things get really interesting. The new tire was specifically designed to help lay rubber onto Dover's smooth concrete surface more effectively. The compound was engineered to deposit rubber into the racing groove, which means Goodyear is not just trying to build a tire that survives Dover. They are trying to build a tire that actively participates in how the track's surface evolves during the race. Think carefully about what that means in practice. If the tire compound accelerates rubber buildup in the groove, deposits rubber more effectively and more quickly than a typical compound would, then the track evolution during the All-Star race could be significantly more dramatic than fans are used to seeing at Dover. The grip levels could change more dramatically between the early laps and the late laps. The performance window for each tire set could shift more noticeably as the race progresses, and the strategic decisions around when to pit, when to stay out, and how to manage tire age could become far more consequential than they normally are. There is also an additional Goodyear confirmation that adds another layer to the strategy picture. Cup Series teams are receiving an extra tire set specifically allocated for qualifying because the All-Star format includes a pit crew challenge during time trials. This directly connects qualifying performance to tire inventory management for the race. A team that burns through an extra set during a shaky qualifying run may find themselves making different strategic choices during the race than a team that managed their qualifying tires perfectly. One pit crew error during time trials can ripple through a driver's entire race strategy before the opening green flag is ever displayed. The Craftsman Truck Series and the Xfinity Series are also receiving new right-side tire combinations specifically developed for Dover's demands this weekend. This is a sport-wide Goodyear initiative, not a cup-only experiment. Multiple series, multiple tire developments, all happening simultaneously at one of the most challenging tracks on the calendar. Now let us think about what all of this means when you pour it into the All-Star race format that NASCAR has already confirmed for Dover. The official 2026 NASCAR All-Star race format is already dramatically different from a standard race weekend, and understanding exactly how it is structured is essential for appreciating why the tire development story matters as much as it does. The total race distance is 350 laps. Those 350 laps are divided into 3 distinct segments, and the transitions between those segments are where the format becomes genuinely chaotic. Segment 1 runs 75 laps. It is a sprint, no mandatory pit sequences, straight racing from the drop of the green flag. The finishing order at the end of Segment 1 matters enormously because it directly determines the starting grid for Segment 2. Segment 2 also runs 75 laps. But here is where the format does something that would be completely unthinkable in a points race. The top 26 finishers from Segment 1 are fully inverted. The driver who crossed the line first in Segment 1 restarts last for Segment 2. The driver who finished 26th restarts on the pole. Every position in between flips completely. That inversion creates a structural guarantee of drama. The fastest drivers in the field are starting at the back of a 75-lap sprint against competitors who may not have the raw pace to stay ahead but have the starting position advantage and 20 years of racing experience to manage the situation. The leaders from Segment 1 who now find themselves at the back have to decide immediately, do you go to the front early and protect position, or do you manage tire wear and save equipment for the 200-lap finale that follows? Segment 3 is the final 200 laps, and the field is narrowed to 26 drivers. The qualifying criteria for those 26 spots combines race winners from 2025 and 2026, former Cup champions running full-time in the current season, the winner of the fan vote, and the remaining positions filled based on combined finishing results across the first 2 segments. 200 laps at Dover in the final segment of an all-star race, with no championship points to protect, prize money on the line, and a field full of drivers who have been racing hard for 150 laps already. The tire wear situation in that final segment could be genuinely dramatic. Drivers who conserved equipment wisely through the first 2 segments may have a meaningful advantage late. Drivers who raced aggressively to build position may find their tires giving up in the closing laps. And now pour a brand new Goodyear compound, one nobody has raced before, one designed to influence track evolution, one with unknown degradation characteristics on a brutally demanding concrete surface, directly into that environment. Crew chiefs are making strategy calls on tires they have never seen race at this track before. They have simulation data. They have tire test information. But there is no substitute for actual race conditions, and the first time any of these teams truly understands how this compound degrades under real Dover race loads is going to be during the race itself. That uncertainty is not a flaw in the plan. It is actually the most exciting part of the plan, because it means strategy becomes genuinely unpredictable in a way that cannot be fully gamed in advance. The team that reads the tire degradation curve correctly and makes the right calls on pit road may win this race more on strategic intelligence than on raw speed. That is exactly the kind of racing that rewards the full picture of a NASCAR team, not just the driver's talent and the car's speed, but the crew chief's judgment, the pit crew's execution, and the organization's ability to process real-time information and make smart decisions faster than their competitors. Now we get to the second major story. And this one is not about what is happening this weekend. It is about what the all-star race could become, what it might eventually look like, and whether NASCAR has the boldness to take the biggest swing available to them. Dale Earnhardt Jr. proposed multi-class racing for the NASCAR All-Star event. Not a modified points format. Not a different qualifying structure. Multi-class racing, where the Craftsman Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series all compete on the same track at the same time in one massive invite-only all-star showcase. The concept of multi-class racing is not new to motorsport globally. It is the defining format of the Le Mans 24 Hours, one of the most celebrated endurance races in the world, where prototype machinery and GT cars share the same circuit simultaneously. Each class races for its own championship result. Drivers must navigate around competitors who are moving at dramatically different speeds. Strategy becomes enormously complex because you are not just managing your own race, you are constantly reacting to what the other classes are doing around you. Translating that concept to a NASCAR oval environment, specifically at Dover Motor Speedway, would create something that genuinely does not exist anywhere else in American motorsport today. Picture it specifically. Cup cars at full speed, the fastest, most powerful machines in the NASCAR stable, sharing the track with Xfinity Series cars that are meaningfully slower through the corners but still being driven aggressively by some of the most talented young drivers in the sport competing for their own class result. And Craftsman Truck Series trucks, with their different aerodynamic profile, different handling characteristics, and different tire behavior, also on track simultaneously, fighting their own battle while inevitably becoming part of the Cup race story. Every lap of that race would carry multi-layered narrative. A Cup leader approaching a truck battle in turns 3 and 4. An Xfinity driver protecting a class podium position while Cup cars are diving to the inside on every restart. A truck driver who becomes a physical obstacle at a critical moment in the Cup race, not intentionally, not through any fault of their own, just through the inherent complexity of multi-class competition on a narrow 1-mile oval. Dale Jr. specifically pointed to the challenge element as the core of why this idea is compelling. Slower cars do not just represent traffic. They represent unique challenges that force faster competitors to think differently, react differently, and make decisions they would never face in a single-class race. The unpredictability is structural. It is built into the format by definition. You cannot fully game it in advance because you cannot predict exactly where every class competitor will be at every moment of the race. There is also the exclusivity angle that Dale Jr. emphasized strongly. One of the things that has sometimes weakened the all-star race identity is the sense that the field is not truly exclusive enough to feel like a genuine honor to be part of. If you tighten the qualifying criteria and make earning an all-star berth genuinely difficult, and then you put the drivers who earned it into an event format that exists nowhere else in American motorsport, you have created something with a real identity. Something that stands alone on the calendar not just because it has no championship points, but because it is fundamentally different from everything else NASCAR does. The invite-only nature of a multi-class all-star event would mean the best trucks, the best Xfinity cars, and the best Cup cars, selected based on meaningful performance criteria, all sharing one stage. The best against the best, across every level of the sport on the same day. Is that idea without challenges? Absolutely not. Safety is the first conversation any serious analysis has to have. Mixing vehicles of significantly different speeds and handling characteristics on a narrow concrete oval creates situations that have to be managed carefully. Protocols for how class competitors interact, where the passing zones are, how officials manage incidents involving multiple classes simultaneously, all of that would require serious, detailed planning. The pure racing purist argument against it is also legitimate. The Cup Series All-Star Race historically has been a showcase for the absolute best Cup drivers racing Cup cars. Introducing traffic from other classes changes the nature of that showcase in ways that some fans will find dilutive rather than additive. But Dale Jr. is not making this argument carelessly. He is making it from the perspective of someone who has raced at the highest level of this sport, who understands what fans want from entertainment, and who has spent years thinking seriously about how NASCAR can create moments that transcend the normal race weekend experience. When a voice with that background makes this proposal, it deserves serious consideration rather than quick dismissal. And the timing of when he made this proposal matters enormously. He did not say this during a slow news week when NASCAR was running a standard mid-season points race. He said it at the exact moment when NASCAR is already redesigning the All-Star format, already investing in specialized tire development for this event, and already signaling that the status quo is not good enough. That context transforms the proposal from an interesting idea into a genuine directional conversation about where this event is heading. Let us zoom all the way out now and talk about what this moment actually represents for NASCAR as a sport. The All-Star race has a complicated history when it comes to identity. When it works, when the format produces genuine chaos, when drivers are taking risks they would never take in a points race, when the tire wear or the strategy or the restarts create moments that get talked about for weeks afterward, it is one of the most purely entertaining events in motorsport. No stakes other than money and pride. No careful points management. No holding back to stay clean for the championship. Just racing. But when it does not work, when the format feels gimmicky, when the field is not quite exclusive enough to feel truly special, when the racing itself is processional despite all the structural attempts to create drama, it reinforces the criticism that the All-Star race is just an exhibition that happens to pay better than a test session. The sport has been working to solve that problem for a long time. Various format changes have been tried. Different qualifying criteria have been implemented. The event has moved between tracks. And each time, there have been seasons where it clicked and seasons where it fell flat. What feels different about this particular moment is that multiple intelligent approaches are being pursued simultaneously. The Goodyear tire development is attacking the problem from the technical side. If the tires create genuine strategic complexity and meaningful degradation, the racing should be legitimately compelling regardless of what the format looks like. The new format itself is attacking the problem from the structural side. The inversion segment, the narrowing field, the pit crew challenge component all create multiple moments within the event where the competitive landscape shifts dramatically. And Dale Jr.'s multi-class proposal is attacking the problem from the identity side. What if this event was not just the All-Star Cup race with a different format, but something categorically new that does not exist anywhere else? All three of those approaches have real merit, and they are not mutually exclusive. A multi-class all-star race could also use a specialized tire compound designed for the track. It could also have an inversion segment or other format elements that create additional drama within the class competition. The ideas stack rather than compete. The honest assessment is that NASCAR is in a genuinely creative period right now when it comes to the all-star race. The conversations happening around this event are more interesting and more substantive than they have been in years. People inside the sport are willing to consider bold ideas. People outside the sport, fans, analysts, former drivers, are engaged in the conversation in a way that suggests there is real appetite for something genuinely new. Dover Motor Speedway as the venue is also worth appreciating in this context. There are bigger tracks on the schedule. There are tracks with more seating capacity or more media profile. But there is not a track on the schedule that more reliably produces dramatic, consequential racing than the Monster Mile. The concrete demands commitment. The banking punishes mistakes. The narrow groove creates genuine wheel-to-wheel moments. The track evolution rewards adaptability. Dover does not allow a race to be forgettable. The physical demands of the facility force intensity out of every competitor on every lap. Putting the All-Star race at Dover with a new tire compound, with a format designed for chaos, while the biggest conceptual conversation about the event's future plays out in real time, that combination creates a weekend that feels genuinely important in a way exhibitions rarely do. Let us bring all of this together. Heading into the 2026 NASCAR All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway, three things are true simultaneously. Goodyear is bringing a tire that nobody in the field has raced before on this surface under these conditions. A compound designed specifically for Dover's concrete, its corner loads, its grip evolution, and its unique demands on right-side rubber. That tire adds a genuine technical unknown to a race format that is already designed to produce chaos. Nobody, not the crew chiefs, not the engineers, not the tire engineers themselves, knows exactly how this compound will degrade over 200 late race laps at the Monster Mile under all-star race conditions. And that uncertainty is not a problem. It is the most compelling thing about the race from a strategy perspective. The format itself is the most dramatically structured all-star race in recent memory. The inversion segment that sends the fastest qualifiers to the back of segment 2, the narrowing field for the finale, the pit crew challenge component built into qualifying. Every piece of that structure is designed to create multiple turning points within the event rather than one single decisive moment. There is no safe strategy for this race. There is no conservative approach that protects position through all 3 segments. Somebody is always going to take a risk somewhere, and in an environment with no championship points on the line, the risks get bigger and the consequences get more dramatic. And Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s multi-class vision is sitting out there as a genuine picture of what this event could eventually grow into. Not this weekend, but the conversation is happening at the right time, in the right context, with the right level of credibility behind it to be taken seriously. If NASCAR ever decides to truly make the All-Star race something categorically unique, something that exists nowhere else in American motorsport and can never be replicated by a points race, multi-class competition is probably the most powerful single lever available to them. All 3 of these threads connect to the same fundamental truth about what makes motorsport compelling at its best. Uncertainty. Real uncertainty. Not manufactured suspense, not artificial drama, not a format designed to simulate competition that is not actually there, but genuine uncertainty about who is going to win, how they are going to win it, what decisions are going to matter, and what moments are going to define the race. The best NASCAR moments in history are remembered because nobody saw them coming. The tire that went down, the strategy call that looked crazy and paid off, the restart that turned into a 3-wide battle for 15 laps. The driver who managed tires better than anyone else and took the lead with 5 to go when everyone expected the frontrunners to hold on. Those moments do not happen because somebody scheduled them. They happen because the conditions were right for them to emerge naturally from the competition. Demanding track, unknown variables, aggressive competitors with nothing to lose. Dover Motor Speedway this weekend has all of that. Whether the new tires create the strategic chaos everybody is hoping for, whether the format produces the multi-segment drama it was designed to deliver, whether Dale Jr.'s vision ever becomes reality, this weekend has already accomplished one thing that matters more than any single race result. People care about the All-Star race again. The conversation is alive, the energy is real, and the Monster Mile is going to give every driver, every crew chief, every strategist, and every fan a race weekend that demands their full attention from the moment the engines fire. That is what this event was always supposed to be. And after a long time of wondering whether the All-Star race could ever fully get back there, this weekend at Dover, it genuinely feels like it has.